Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics live on Trust TV, your go-to hub for everything politics, policy and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Tonight on the program, we take a hard look at the perceived slowdown in counter-banditry efforts since the killing of notorious kingpin Halilu Sububu last month. While his death sparked renewed hope, there are growing concerns that history is repeating itself as public confidence fades, with bandits regrouping just as seen in the past offensives. A letter to the Deputy Commissioner of Kano from Zamfara State Government House has been made public, raising alarm, warning that bandits are now moving in droves to neighboring states across the northwest region, evading military operations. Is Northern Nigeria once again on the brink of another resurgence? Well, joining me on the program tonight is, of course, a panel of individuals who are quite familiar with this particular development. I have, of course, with me in the studio a security correspondent and an author, Senator Iro Egbu. He's joining us tonight for this conversation to navigate and dimension some of the issues. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you.
And you too.
Right. How are you? Let's first of all start things off with an update from Katsina State, and we have standing by for us Abdullahi Ahmadi to provide us with some security update from Katsina State. All right, I'm aware that we don't have Abdullahi Ahmadi at the moment, but we'll circle back to Abdullahi Ahmadi, who has some update with regards to the activities of bandits in parts of Katsina that have seen a deep resurgence of activities of bandits, where even daytime operations, nefarious operations of some of these bandits have become a new normal now. Also in Sokoto, we'll be speaking to Daily Trust Bureau Chief for some update in that axis that has also been inundated with some of these security challenges. But here in the studio, let's kick the conversation off by gauging the pulse of the nation. I mean, Nigerians would say they are quite used to this. One day we are winning the battle, and the next it looks like we're back to square one again. How do you properly dimension, what is currently ongoing with regards to the counter-banditry efforts, counter-insurgency efforts of the Nigerian military in pushing back and gaining the ground against these bandits who have for long held so many communities hostage in northern Nigeria?
Okay, starting from the positive note, I think for almost a year, the current administration seems to be a bit laid back in its approach to tackling insecurity because of the enormous pressure from the economic side, occasioned by the fuel subsidy removal. So all attention were on the fuel subsidy removal. So the security issues were pushed to the background. It doesn't mean the military and the security still maintain its posture, but there was no vigor. Only recently, from the couple of months back, that there was a kind of push and vigor to a task. That was after the death of the killing of the emir of Gobe.
Of Gobe in Sokoto State.
Yes, Sokoto State. So, and there was kind of outcry, and then there was a kind of tax given to the service chiefs and the security chiefs, both the ministers, Minister of State Matawale, travel around Katsina, Sokoto, even the NSA and the service chiefs. So, but this still falls in line to what I call reactionary measures or reactionary approach to some of these issues, because you notice when there is a kind of outcry or outroar about banditry or security incidents, the government will come and show as if something is being done. Yes, there have been some tactical successes, some of the, like you noted, some of the kingpins, like the Subudu, Sani Buke also have been killed. But Bello TG is still at large, and some other, like you noted, there's regrouping. So, but this heightened effort to curtail in the tactical operation it does not show is a well marshal sustained counter banditry operation. It still fall within the normal Hadarin Daji, yes, operation that have been going on. In fact, it precedes this administration. It has been going on for years. But if you check on like Northeast operation, that you know that there's official counter-terrorism operation that is going on there. I don't know if there's an overarching security operation that is designed and suited for the Northwest, what is going on in that region. So
you don't think over the past few years they have adapted to the peculiarities of the operations of the bandits and the way they attack, the guerrilla tactics that they've been using?
I think for now, even though there have been successes, tactical successes, like I say, and then there have been effort by some non-kinetic effort by some governors. The current Minister of State famously wanted to extended arms peace deal to some of these terrorists, but there's no comprehensive program, comprehensive policy looking at the issues that the overarching issue of this banditry in the Northwest, to actually look at it beyond just heightened kinetic approach, like military should.
You're not convinced the operation. There's a holistic strategic approach.
There's no holistic strategic approach. That's the word. So I'm not convinced. Yes, I appreciate the heightened kinetic approach, heightened military operation that's achieving success here and there, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
And over how long will this operation, will it be this tempo, will it be a long-term one, or will it follow public outcry? Before you know it, it becomes normalized again, and things go back to normal. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I think we have Abdullahi Amadi, our correspondent on the ground in Katsina, who is joining us via phone this evening to give us some update on security developments. Abdullahi Amadi, good evening, and thank you so much for taking the time. Let's talk about Katsina State and its famous battle with insecurity. We are well aware that there is some form of resurgence, and this has been ongoing over the past couple of weeks since this renewed vigor by the Nigerian military to push and flush out some of these bandits. We understand that they are moving to safer grounds, or at least grounds that have less security threat to their operations. What can you tell us about some of these volatile areas, the Damusas, the Faskari, and all those volatile areas that have become notorious with bandit operations?
Well, thank you very much, Abdullahi Ahmad. Banditry and activities of bandits is increasing and continue to increase unabated. The bandits are not only operating in the insecurity frontline local governments, but also these days we have seen bandits infiltrating into the vulnerable local government areas of Katsina State. For instance, beside the 10 frontline local governments of Jibia, Basari, Safana, Damusa, Kankara, Faskari, Sabua, Dandime, and Funtua. The bandits are also in communities in Kurifi, Dusima, Matazu, Musawa, Kafur, Malumfashi, and Bakuri local government area, which were listed among the vulnerable LGS. And of course, Rugu Forest, which links Katsina with Damfara and Birningwari in Kaduna State, is known to be the main place where these bandits are hibernating. But up to this moment, we have not seen or had anything or any attempt to take the war against the banditry to this forest. And again, the intensity and frequency of the attacks is really increasing with killings, displacement of people, increasing humanitarian crisis, which is getting worse by the day. Internally displaced persons have filled major streets of cities and towns across the state. They can be seen hanging around major parks, motor parks, marketplaces, filling stations, and other public places seeking for arms. This is very pathetic, and moving forward, it is harvest season in Katsina State and other northern states. And farmers have produced cash and food crops, but yet they cannot access their farms to harvest and evacuate their farm produce. This is also something that is very worrisome. The bandits have truncated social and economic activities of the people. They cannot go to markets, they cannot go to farms. For instance, let me give an example with Medebune village in Damusa local government. These people have been confined to their village alone. If they want to go to Entumaki market and of course Kankara market, which are nearby, they have to seek the assistance of military personnel to escort them to these markets, which is very disturbing. They cannot move an inch without the escort of military. Their social and economic life has been truncated. There are other communities which are just like that. So indeed, honestly, we have not seen any proactive measure being taking place in this part of the state. People are disturbed, people are worried, people cannot do anything. This insecurity has worsened the lives and the livelihood of the people of Katsina State, honestly.
Right. It's safe to say that it is an all too familiar dark tale. But talk to me about the proportionate military operation that we've seen in Katsina over the past couple of weeks and months, especially since the killing of Halilu Sububu, who happens to be the notorious kingpin leader. What is your assessment of some of these military operations in these volatile areas? Because we also understand that in some of these volatile communities that you mentioned, daylight activities of some of these bandits have become a new normal now. As you pointed out, in some of these areas, they need security cover before they're able to go out to the markets or to do any other social activity in those areas.
If you ask an ordinary man on the streets of these frontline local governments and the vulnerable local governments, he will easily tell you that he is not even aware of the deployment of military personnel to Sokoto, to Zamfara, or Katsina, because the intensity of the attacks and of course the frequency of the attacks continue unabated, and people are being attacked in a broad daylight on their farms. They are being killed, they are being abducted, they have no access to their farms. So what anybody will tell you in these areas is that they are not aware of any military deployment or other security deployment to these areas. So they are suffering and they are left at the mercy of these hoodlums. This is exactly what is happening.
All right. Abdullah Ahmadi, thank you so much for the update. We're going to have to leave it here for now. Abdullah Ahmadi, our correspondent on the ground in Katsina, giving us a feel of the current situation of things across local government areas in Katsina State that have been besieged by bandits' activities. And it's safe to say that this is not necessarily a new situation for some of these communities who have become not just familiar, but have accepted that this is now the new normal. And of course, this is all a part of the conversation we're having tonight about whether or not the military is losing its steam, or the fight against banditry in the Northwest is losing some of its momentum as perceived by sections of the public. We're going to take a quick breather. We'll be back in just a moment. Senator is still here with me in the studio. We're going to add another guest to the conversation to spotlight some of the developing issues in Kebbi State, where recently, over the past weekend, a monarch was abducted around some of these volatile areas in the state, which also signposts this growing insecurity that is spreading to other parts of the country. More on this in just a moment after the break. Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Daily Politics on Trust TV. We're adding another guest to the conversation around the insecurity, the growing insecurity in northern Nigeria, and he's Abubakar Abdullahi, the Public Affairs Secretary Kebbi Development Forum. Now, recently, bandits on this past Sunday, attacked Kanya, a community of Danko and Wasagu local government area of the state, killing one person and abducting the district head, Alhaji Isa Daya, along with 7 others. Now, he's joined us to further help us dimension where some of these other states that beforehand were not necessarily frontline states or states that can be identified as part of those experiencing the insecurity challenges are now having to deal with their own share of growing insecurity that has been linked to the banditry in northern Nigeria. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you. Right, let's chip in this particular development from Kebbi, where, I mean, for the most part, over the past couple of years, if you're talking about insecurity in northern Nigeria, Kebbi doesn't really come to mind. What, in your view, is happening in your state right now when we talk about the larger concerns about insecurity in Nigeria?
Well, just as you observed, Kebbi State used to be remotely connected to, banditry. But in recent days, or recent times, there is a resurgence of banditry in Kebbi. And this largely occurs, around our boundary with Niger State. You see that the Wasagu, which is part of the Zulu Emirate, actually borders Niger State. You know that Niger State has also featured prominently among the hotbeds of banditry in Nigeria. So the Wasagu area and Zulu area, are increasingly seeing, banditry. And banditry, as you may imagine, is a larger umbrella for massacres, for rapes, for illegal possession of firearms, and so on and so forth. So it's in connection with that last Sunday, bandits attacked Kanya village, kidnapped 8 persons along with the district head of Kanya, Alhaji Isa Daya. The police were able to, rescue 8 persons on hot who have since been reunited with their families. Unfortunately, we lost Alhaji Isa Daya, whose body was found in the bushes around Sakaba. And Kebbi Development Forum, as the umbrella body of the elites, if you like, of Kebbi State, has shown extreme concern, about the increasing cases of banditry, in Kebbi State, and we are really worried.
Is there an unusualness or some kind of peculiarity what's going on in Kebbi? I mean, you talk about the spillover of attacks from Niger State, and we do know that these are cross-border activities.
Yes.
One day they're here, the next day they move.
Well.
As soft as the target is,
yes,
that's, from our understanding, where they go to next. But what is peculiar about the nature of these attacks, that happened recently?
Okay, so you know that in addition to, being a bordering state with the Niger State, we also border Zamfara, you understand? So, part of the reason behind this banditry actually is cattle rustling, you understand? And then there are also mining activities. So you see that some of the bandits, move around not just to rustle cattle, but also find safe places where they can mine, gemstones and sell.
Right.
And like I said, Danko Wasagu is one of the largest local governments, in Kebbi State, and there is a lot of what?
Hard to police?
Hard to police because there is a lot of ungoverned space there.
Right. Right.
So that's where you really see, the failure of law enforcement, if you like.
Senator, let's talk about the scale of the problem versus the scale of the solution. I mean, we've always talked about it. Do we have enough police officers? Do we have enough military men compared to not just the landmass, but also the pockets of problems? I mean, we talk about how overextended the military is, 38 theater of operations running concurrently across 36 states of the Federation, including the FCT. What do you make of the scale of the problem versus the scale of the solution?
Okay, the scale of the problem is massive, and because apart from what is happening in the northwest, other geopolitical zone in this country have their own peculiar security challenges that are going on. Like you say, there are various threats of operation. Like the military is almost in all the 36 states of the federation for one security operation or the other, and then. What is happening is that there have been ongoing security operation in the past. The old one are still there. The new one are emerging. So if you check the UN designated number of police per certain number of citizens,
the ratio,
or the ratio, yes. We are not yet there. We are not even near there. Then, and you are on top of that, you see many challenges. So now the problem, like he has highlighted some of the things I want to say. That's why I say the federal government or the government have not really sit down to really dissect the problem so that they can know how to apply the solution. It has been like reactionary. I just treating the symptoms. I know the symptom is just banditry, but have you taken time to look at the causative factors, which I mentioned? Cattle rustling, those are the old news we used to hear. But the another dimension, which I see is more critical, the illegal mining activities, and it's going across the country. Nigeria is not the only country that is facing conflict. If you check, okay, for example, the one that is popular now, the Middle East conflict, yes, the battle will be going on the surface, the kinetic aspects of it, the tactical aspect of it. But if you notice behind the scene, there are diplomatic shuttles, there are negotiation behind with the leaders, the funders of this conflict. Because those you are seeing are the foot soldiers. Yes, why you are killing the bandits, if you look at them, these are the foot soldiers. Who are the funders? Who are the real people behind?
Isn't the verdict out on whether to negotiate or not to negotiate? I thought Nigeria,
they're just negotiating.
Nigeria has made itself
negotiating with
not to negotiate.
You don't understand what I mean. These bandits you are seeing on the surface, or the so-called bandit leaders, these are small boys in the scheme of things, in the real conflict situation. So you check, there have to be re-analysis. The re-engagement is something the public may not know, because some of these diplomatic shots, like you're seeing, some behind the scene, and this conflict can even be stopped behind the scene. And you find out that the what you just do is mop up oppression of the foot soldiers on ground. I've said that you can solve conflict without even firing a shot. All it takes is political will. Engage those who are really behind this. It may be funders, it may be, when you talk about illegal mining activity, that means there must be bias of this those products. Right. So government need to look at these issues, look at the problem, look at it in a holistic way, and know how to. And people have also talked about ethnic dimension in what is going on in the northwest between the Fulani and Hausas. So government can also look at it from that perspective. That doesn't stop the kinetic operation, because you need to subdue, you need to suppress the foot soldiers, and that can also bring the funders to the negotiating table. Yes.
So where do you stand on this? Because it seems to me that people are divided about the best way forward. There are some Nigerians who think fire for fire is the best approach. The kinetic approach is the best way. I mean, look at how the killing of Sububu and some of its members has ignited public support for the Nigerian military going forward. Mob them all, as you would see on social media. A lot of people, commenting, urging the government to step up some of these operations. But looking at what is happening at the community level, you talk about cattle rustling. He just pointed out the inter-ethnic element, right, that is also attached to it. I mean, recently we heard from the notorious Bello Turji talk about, what is going on, how he, is like fighting for his people per se, the attack that they are coming and so on and coming under and so on and so forth by other communities, whether the farming communities or the host communities of some of the Fulanis in those areas. What do you make of the approach so far, and whether it is it has been effective or not in really not just addressing the symptomatic issues, but also the causative problems?
I think it has not been quite effective because, to my mind, there is even no unity of purpose in the Nigerian Armed Forces. There's a kind of Cold War, for example, from the between the Army and the Air Force. The best way to get...
There's no synergy?
Yes, I am not sure there's synergy. I'm not sure there's synergy. Because if there's synergy, there are three possible ways to really strike at bandits. It's when they're about to, strike soft targets, or when they're in the act, or immediately after they finish. So if you have army on the ground, it's a matter of calling the Air Force. And the Air Force can be there in a matter of minutes. But so many times, you see, and I mean, you just see the Air Force and the army kind of, flexing muscle. You understand? Okay, he gave an example with what's the conflict in the Middle East. I'm sure you will see how Israeli Air Force, once they come under fire, rocket fire from Hamas or from what the other one is,
Hezbollah.
in no time you just see Israeli Air Force comes to and hits the target, and that kills it. So what I'm saying is that because we were at a stage where we were saying we import arms, that the army didn't have sufficient arms to fight. So we have gone beyond that. You don't hear about complaints now about arms. You understand? But I still think that if the Air Force and the army, can act in unison, in real time, you can neutralize the bandits. Because don't forget, lately, the army is also buying helicopters. It's trying to, establish its own air wing. What do you think is the cause? It is because, I'm sure, they are not getting, well with the Air Force.
And let's talk about what's happening in the communities, because when we talk about kidnappings, destruction of farmlands, and everything else attached to the banditry challenge, rural communities are the ones that have been largely impacted.
Yes.
What is your reading of the public confidence or the lack of it at the community level in the state, for instance, in the state's ability to deal with this problem?
I think that the communities have largely lost hope in the ability of Nigerian armed forces to really nip this banditry in the bud. And some communities are actually talking about self-help. And you heard the governor of Katsina State, Aminu Masari, saying communities should defend themselves. And even his successor now, Dr. Dukorada, is also saying communities should just jar their loins, and confront these bandits. So I think that some communities, what they actually want is an encouragement, maybe by way of arms, to actually, help themselves.
Are you talking about vigilantes?
Yeah, vigilantes.
Formations?
Yeah, vigilantes, because whether you like it or not, they have become part of the defense against banditry, whether against Boko Haram or against bandits in Katsina. These states have almost all of them, are gradually, unveiling, their own community police, so to speak, these vigilantes. It was launched in Katsina, it was launched in Zamfara. So communities are actually saying, look, give us the encouragement, give us the permission, give us arms, we will defend ourselves. And you recall that sometimes in Zamfara, I think it was, I don't know what, a couple of months ago, some Zamfara communities actually overpowered the bandits and killed them, and defended themselves. So I think that northern communities or communities in northwest Nigeria are increasingly losing confidence and hope that the Nigerian army is capable of tackling this banditry.
There's this conversation about outsourcing the fight against bandits and insurgents in this country, and most recently Senator Ali Ndume has re-echoed that same thought, saying that, listen, the federal government needs to consider hiring mercenaries to deal with this problem. And it's a very tricky situation. Most people feel this is a direct indictment on the Nigerian security architecture if you have to outsource and give the fight against banditry to contractors. But do you think it should be, the ends should justify the means?
No, I don't. Ali Ndume, I've been following his debate in the Senate. He's a likable guy and he's trenchant in his positions, but I don't believe that we should outsource the fighting of banditry. To who? To who? Like
I mean,
I said,
if it gets the job done, does it matter?
but it won't even get the job done. We're only going to endanger ourselves. You bring foreigners, you bring foreigners into our communities. Where will they go? They will not go. All you have to do, you understand, is to insist that the armed forces, carry out their job of defending communities, including these ungoverned spaces, and then, like I said, permitting and arming these communities so they can defend themselves. Right. I don't believe that the defense of our communities from banditry or kidnapping should be outsourced to who?
All right, Senator, let's talk about this letter that is quite alarming. It came from one ASP, Bashir Makama, who is the SID coordinator at the government house in Gusau, Zamfara State, to the Deputy Commissioner of Police, the Department of the Nigerian Police in Kano Command, and it had the title Mass Movement of Armed Bandits and Their Accomplices as well as Collaborators towards Kano State, saying that there is credible information that indicates that sequel to the ongoing military onslaught against armed bandits and their collaborators in states like Katsina, Sokoto and Zamfara State, where military and other security forces are recording successes, the bandits are now moving to softer targets. He also did say that their information shows that the armed bandits are now buying houses and settling across a host of communities, and he mentioned some of them in Kano, and some have also been identified settling in Bichi along Shanono roads. So when we talk about intelligence gathering and things like that, it does appear that there is enough information that the government has, that the security agencies have, to be able to carry out preemptive strikes or help prevent the worst case scenario, which is when these bandits eventually attack. What do you make of information like this, not just being available to the security agents, but also being made public, for instance?
Yes,
I suppose it defeats the purpose.
That's what I'm saying. There may be two things to this. Before such intelligence may be made public, which is not ideal, because you're already alarming the enemy that you are aware where they are, and you may likely come after them. That means you are telling them relocate or take new position. But I'm sure sometimes it may also be frustrating, and that's why political will matters, because sometimes you may be feeding intelligence or information to those who are supposed to act, and they fail to act time and time again. It can frustrate some officers, some people concerned who genuinely want that, and sometimes that's what makes intelligence to leak. They may purposely leak it to the public to alert the public that, look, we have been gathering intelligence and maybe it's not being acted upon. So, but back to the main issue is that every strata of Nigerian security, and that's why I'm still talking about overarching design, not just the military. Sometimes we think that military is the almighty that can solve all security issues. Military is not there, they're only just to go subdue. But the territory, the policing of it, the intelligence gathering, how to also be in sync with other security, the intelligence agencies, be the DSS, even the police and other formations, need to also work hand in hand. And if we are to be successful, even at the tactical level, I'm not even talking about other measures that need to be applied. Even at the operational level, the kinetic level, that means all the strata of operation at that kinetic level, from the military to the intelligence to the policing, have to also work in sync and in a sustainable manner. Like our territory is vast, and I don't even know if we have all the. It's not that the military are trying, but the territory is vast, and they cannot be everywhere. And you have to be sustained. Like we still going back to what is happening in the Middle East, because it's a standard. You can see that even on the sustained area campaign and bombing is still ongoing. But the sources of it is the intelligence. Because before any bomb, Israel bomb or the Hezbollah or whatever, there is a target, there's information that is being acted upon. And this is what needs to be done in real time. Not like what is happening, which I explained may be frustration from those who are giving this intelligence, maybe it's not being acted upon. So there needs to be synergy in that aspect of it.
And what about the element of the politicization of the insecurity in some of these volatile areas? Case in point, Zamfara, for instance, the state government and the Minister of Defense have been going back and forth about it to a point where the bandit is now the adjudicator, deciding to wade in to say, listen, this is not our sponsor, this is not our sponsor. What do you make of that distrust between the state government in Zamfara, which has become the epicenter of the current banditry challenge, and the Minister of Defense, the State Minister of Defense, who is administratively spearheading this counter-insurgency effort?
Politics will always come up. As long as that politics does not fuel or lend support to the enemy of the state. If you check even in model states where we try to improve our standard to beat in the West or even in the East, you still see that politicians will always criticize each other in the way they are handling the state of insecurity. But when the state itself is being threatened, they always unify to ensure that the enemy is being taken out. For example, if the US security is being, or even the UK, you see the Republicans and Democrats uniting. But where there may be differences in the approach or how they want to counter that, or say this administration is not handling it the way it's supposed to be. But it will not be in the state of to the state of supporting the enemy. So all this allegation and counter allegation is normal to me in political affairs. But the reality of what people want is result. Why is it that these bandits keep on festering? Why is it that they've not been able to be defeated?
Well,
and who is responsible? Those two principals are
answer that question by saying because their sponsors are in government, whether it's the state or the federal government.
Then you feature the sponsor, and that comes back to what I'm saying, that if the sponsors are not eliminated, if the sponsors are not brought to bear, either arrested, either prosecuted, or either subdued to give, then the foot soldier, they keep on manufacturing foot soldiers. Because with the situation of poverty in Nigeria, with the situation of disaffection, recruitment is very easy.
Right.
As long as there are people funding it. So once you don't decapitate funding, either funding channels, funders, sponsors, you keep on having the conflict, the crisis, and that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
Yes.
And in talking about that particular point, just to piggyback off it, I remember the president during the campaign season before the 2023 elections talked about how the youths are, because of the growing poverty and unemployment, are a breeding ground for recruitment for some of these terrorist organizations. What can you tell me about the nexus that connects that? Because as he said, this situation is hydra-headed. I mean, Halilu Subuwa has been taken out, but you get the feeling that somebody is about to replace him very, very soon, right? So there are multitudes of them. They are a dime and a dozen. What do you make of the poverty at the community level and how that feeds into this revolving problem of dealing with bandits over and over again?
I will tell you this. The rate of poverty in Nigeria is unspeakable. And Nigeria is one of the most unequal societies. So take the example of Zamfara, or even Kebbi, or even Sokoto. These are some of the most backward states in terms of Western education. Even some of the young men and women who have been able to get one certificate or the other are unemployed. You understand? And then don't forget also there is this big factor of what do they call it? These children roaming around. They call it out of school children. We also have one of the biggest numbers of out of school children. So definitely, there is serious nexus between increasing rates of banditry, and the question of poverty, of illiteracy, and so on and so forth. And I tell you, bandits have lots and lots of youths they can recruit from Kebbi or Sokoto or Zamfara, because like I said, they are unemployed and some of them have not even gone to school, and even those who went to school, have not been able to secure education. To secure employment. So there's a lot of poverty. There is a lot of want, and so some of the youth can take, little money and take the guns and join bandits.
Now, in talking about Kebbi State, for instance, we understand some of the remarkable achievements that have been made in revolutionizing the agricultural value chain. Right, one of the highest rice-producing states in the country, for instance. What has been the impact on communities who are known for their ability to produce some of these staple foods? Because you understand the bandits also take advantage of the large landmass to exploit people. They have been levying farmers. Those who pay are allowed access to their farms. Those who don't are either attacked, maimed, killed, or kidnapped for ransom. What is the situation like in Kebbi?
Well, some of the level of rice production in Kebbi is exaggerated. I must be sincere with you. Kebbi has always been a rice growing state. As a matter of fact, my own maternal grandmother, 50, 60 years ago, she used to partake, in this rice cultivation. And actually, my ancestor himself was a big-time rice farmer called Najaku. So it's true that are, attempts to actually multiply rice cultivation in Kebbi. And to that extent, also, a lot of young men and women have found something to do. I myself, for example, for the first time have acquired a rice farmland in Kebbi. So it's true there is some, some improvement in rice production. And like I said, to that extent, a lot of people have actually found, something to do at, in terms of farming. Don't forget also, about 2 or 3 years ago, Kebbi posted the biggest number among pilgrims, Muslims going on pilgrimage to Kebbi. So yes, even this governor himself actually, is trying. He's giving people solar water pumps, he's giving them fertilizer, and other farming inputs. And as I speak to you, I know that we are looking forward to, a bumper, rice harvest minus, these floods. Yes.
Yeah. So in respect to the security challenges, is that a hindrance in terms of output, in terms of the livelihood of people at the community level who are traditionally just farmers and nothing more?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because like you observed, some of the banditry has actually inhibited, farming. Because not just do the bandits, levy taxes on the people. Don't forget they also roast through cattle and they open the granaries, and they steal food. So to that extent, really, especially around that Danko Soguzuru area, they are very much in the forefront in terms of cultivating maize and guinea corn and so on and so forth. And I can tell you, because of those ungoverned spaces and the activities of the banditry, it's affecting yields.
Okay, Senator, last thought in 1 minute. For people who are holding out hope to see some kind of sea change in the area of insecurity, I mean, we've had to deal with this for the past 1.5 decades, whether it's the Boko Haram insurgency or what's happening right now with the bandits. How do you see us turning a corner, going by the current trajectory? Do you see a tide shifting in any way, shape or form in the next couple of months, especially in relation to the current economic situation in the country?
Yes, for the immediate term, the kinetic approach, the heightened military operation should be sustained. It shouldn't be an ad hoc, reactionary measure, technism kind of military operation, because there is a heightened outcry against killings, and then government want to show that is working. Then there'll be heightened military operation after there'll be a law and things go back to normal. So it should be sustained. Then, in addition to sustaining the military operation, there should be synergy among the security agencies, from the intelligence to the policing to the military. Then, for the long term, we've talked about how poverty and underdevelopment feeds into these issues. So good governance and development. So it's a long-term approach, so that because the more people get employed, the less they will have tons of youth or available people to be used for criminalities. Then, to back up with the first point I made, I mentioned decapitating their supply chain, their funders. Because once you go to war, what you need to do is to deny the enemy their source of livelihood. You cut off. Is it the sponsor? Is it so? And then there should be definition of, to really understand what the problem is. What is it? Illegal mining? Is it cattle rustling? Is it interethnic conflict? It may be a multifaceted causes. Then there can be a holistic definition, and then define how to approach it to have a long term. Then the political way to follow through and see that all these vices are rooted out need to be in sync with other factors I mentioned. Then this ungoverned space, for a long time, the governance at the local level had completely collapsed. So if we can revive our governance system down to the local government, we talk about community policing, we talk about vigilance. These are ad hoc measures, these are informal. So we can formalize, get community policing, state policing in a way that it will not be a tool to the politicians. This will help.
Gentlemen, interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight. Thank you most kindly for taking the time and, of course, giving your expert analysis on this ever-present danger to very many parts of this country. Thank you most kindly for joining us on Daily Politics.
Thank you.
To see you. All right. Okay. That's our show for you tonight. As always, we appreciate you for your time and company. Feel free to follow us across our social media platforms just to stay in touch. You can also visit our website, trusttv.com, for the very latest. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. From myself and the rest of the team, thank you for joining us on Daily Politics. We'll see you tomorrow live at 8. Good evening.